This is a demo of our D&D backstory generator using GPT-3 and a Google Colab notebook. To start off, I'm going to go through the example user as a first-time D&D player. So as a first-time D&D player, the user might not know exactly what they need to build a character, so they're more likely to use the optional GPT prompts to get descriptions for the different class and race options, as well as they're likely to use the stat randomizer to avoid having to do it themselves. So I'm going to go through and enter the inputs as if I am a first-time D&D player. The first section is setting up the OpenAI imports and other imports, as well as the API key. I've already done that for this demo. And then this section sets up the different functions needed for the GPT call and printing out nicely. So starting with the inputs, going to start with a name. As a first-time D&D player, I might choose a simple name. So I'm going to start with John. And for the surname or last name, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, so Drago sounds kind of cool, as well as a nickname. Okay, that's kind of cool. So enter a nickname for your character. I like The Matrix, and he goes by The One, so I'm going to go ahead and do The One. So I am John The One Drago. Now, going ahead and choosing a race, I was honestly thinking about playing a human, so I'm going to start with that. I'm going to go straight into that because that sounds the most familiar to maybe a new D&D player. Would you like to learn more about the human race? Yeah, that would be interesting to hear how that is in the human race is in D&D. So human race in Dungeons and Dragons is a diverse and proud one. They're versatile, known for their courage and determination. They are adept at many things, including magic, and are always eager to explore and learn new things. Humanoids of all shapes and sizes can be found among the ranks of the human race, and they are united by the sense of adventure and determination to make a difference in the world. That sounds really cool. That's really nice that it gave me a description. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on as a human. So selected race is human. Sweet. And based on that, it talks about including magic. So during this class selection, that's kind of, it says adept at many things, including magic. So maybe I'll go with a wizard. That sounds kind of interesting. Learn more about wizard. Yeah, I don't really know much about all the classes, so let's learn about a wizard. So a wizard is a spellcaster who uses arcane magic, which is a type of magic that comes from unpredictable and dangerous ethereal plane. Wizards are among the most intelligent and powerful creatures in Dungeons & Dragons. They use their magic to control others and manipulate the world around them. I don't know, that sounds kind of interesting, but I kind of wanted to be like a melee fighter a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and say no, I don't really want to be a wizard. Let's choose fighter. Sounds cool. That sounds like hand-to-hand combat. That sounds like what I want to do. Let's learn about the fighter really quick, get some more information. So down here, the prompt from GPT is fighters are brave and skilled warriors who fight for justice and honor. They have great strength and constitution and are skilled with all forms of weaponry. They're also very good at defending themselves and their allies. Okay, that sounds kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead and choose that. So selected class, fighter, sweet. And next up is going to be generating my character stats. So I've heard of these, the strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, but I don't really know how I would want to put like my distribution into there. So hopefully I can just have it do it for me. That would be really nice. Since I don't really know what I'm doing. So would you like to manually set the stats of your character? No. All right, and then it looks like it randomly did that for me. And taking a look at this, it seems to have put the highest in strength and constitution, which is interesting because that's what it mentioned up here. So strength of 15, dexterity 11, constitution, intelligence, wisdom. Okay, so I'm not that wise or charismatic, but I'm strong and quick. So that makes sense as a fighter. That's interesting. And here we've got the quick run. So it looks like in this section, it's going to go through all of the prompts and provide a single output instead of having to manually run through them. So that's kind of nice. Saves me some time. So it looks like it's going to get race details, go through the class details. So information about a human fighter, get a city of origin for where my character grew up, and vividly describe the town. So we'll get some more information on the town. A prompt on my family, so a little bit background of the family, as well as early life in the town. how I got my nickname. That'll be interesting to hear how it generates that. And then my future desires for my future adventures. And then it looks like it's going to create a concatenated output. So let's go ahead and run this and see how it does. So it looks like it's going through doing all of these different calls. Looks like it's printing a lot, so that means it's got sufficient detail. It's very cool that it's able to get that much detail. So it looks like at this point it is on the description of my early life, and should be almost done. And there we go. So it created the concatenated output. So let's see how it did. So this is something that as a new player I might want to use and pull from to describe my character. So it looks like it's got a lot of details. So that's awesome. So my full title is John the One Drago as a human fighter. My statistics, like I mentioned before, we got our strength, dex, and con at the highest, and it goes down from there. So John is known as the One because he is the only one who survived a massacre at Fallcrest. As a human, John Drago is 6 foot tall, with an average build. He has brown hair and hazel eyes. That's nice that it gives a pretty good description of what my character might look like. As a fighter, John's able to use any weapon and armor. He's also able to use his athleticism to take advantage in combat, and is able to use his skills to become a master at any weapon he chooses to pick up. That sounds pretty cool. Looks like I'm going to be a pretty good fighter. Makes sense. So John Drago was born in the town of Fallcrest. He's raised by his parents, who were both human. His father was a blacksmith and his mother was a farmer. John had 2 brothers and 1 sister. He was a middle child. As a child, John was always getting into trouble. He was always fighting with his brothers and sisters. His parents always had to tell him to stop. When he was 10 years old, John's father died. His mother had to take care of the family by herself. She worked hard to make sure that the children had everything they needed. When John was 13 years old, he left home, became a soldier, and fought in many wars, became a great warrior. He eventually settled down and became a blacksmith like his father. And so that's pretty cool. Now it goes through my backstory in like that I'm from Fallcrest and all that. So a little bit more about Fallcrest seemingly is the next section. Fallcrest is a small town located in the middle of nowhere. The only thing around it for miles is farmland. The town itself is rather unassuming, small wooden houses and few businesses. The town is home to a few hundred people, most of whom are farmers. There's a small inn and a couple of stores, but not much else. The town is surrounded by a wall to keep occasional monster out, but otherwise is relatively safe. Then the Dragos were one of the original families to settle in Fallcrest, back when it was a little more than a way station between Nentir and Hastar Caliphate. That's interesting that it brings in some other cities to pull from. The Dragos were carpenters and stonemasons by trade, and they used their skills to help build Fallcrest into the bustling city it is today. Dragos have always been a tight-knit family and have always been loyal to Fallcrest. They've always been involved in the city's politics and affairs and have always been quick to help out their fellow Fallcrestians. That's kind of cool that they gave a name to the city's people. Dragos are well known for their generosity, and they've often opened their home to traveling scholars and adventurers. They're always eager to help others, and they're always quick to offer advice and assistance. Dragos are a respected family in Fallcrest, and they're well liked by their fellow Fallcrestians. They're a proud family and always quick to help out their city and its people. It's kind of interesting. A lot of detail, but it did seem a little repetitive for a generated output, but overall I think it is pretty cool. And then John Drago is looking for adventure that will test his strength and courage. He wants to find a challenging quest that will take him to new and generous places. He's looking for adventure that will give him a chance to show off his skills and prove his worth. So overall, I think that created a really awesome backstory that me as a new player would have a lot to pull from when describing my character and doing a lot of the role-playing aspects of D&D. Next up, I'll be going through the example user of a casual D&D player using this GPT application. So as a casual D&D player, the user might use some of the guided prompts as a refresher on what to do, but typically would have a good idea of what options are available to input. So I'm going to go ahead and input as if I was the casual D&D player. So we have the same initialization prompts, so I'm not going to rerun those as we did for the last one. But for this, let's go ahead and input the character details. So for the first name, let's be a little more adventurous with the name. So I'm going to make this guy named Lyle and his last name thorn gauge sounds kind of cool. I've been thinking about this for a little bit, maybe kind of building off from my previous characters that I've played before. And then a nickname of my character. Let's say he's let's do the mile, something like running related. Sounds kind of cool. Like he ran for a mile. I don't know, something like that. So Lyle the Mile Thorn Gauge. It also rhymes, so that's why. So choosing a race, let's go ahead. I definitely I know what all these races are. I've maybe interacted with them in previous games. So I was kind of interested in playing a halfling this time. Let's go ahead and choose halfling. Would you like to learn more about the halfling race? No, I don't think I need to. I know about them. They're short. They're lucky. They got a lot of things going for them. So I don't think I need that prompt there. But I've only played a couple characters, so I don't know many of the classes. So maybe I'll need some help here. So let's go ahead and choose monk. Monk sounds kind of cool. And yes, I would like to learn about that. So let's get some more details on what a monk might be. So describe the D&D class monk. So monk is a melee fighter and specializes in unarmed combat, incredibly quick and agile, and are able to deliver powerful blows with their fists and feet. Monks are also proficient in the use of weapons and are able to use their ki energy to perform special abilities. That sounds really cool. That sounds familiar to what I might have heard previously from playing D&D a little bit. But yeah, let's go ahead and let's be a monk. So yes, I would like to be a monk. So selected class monk. All right, getting character stats. So this one, I think I kind of know what I want for my character. So I would like to manually put them in. So yeah, let's manually set these stats. So strength, somewhere between 3 and 18. Let's do a 10. So not too strong, but not weak. Dexterity, definitely high dexterity. He's a monk, so he gets a lot. Constitution, he's pretty able to withstand many things, but he is not that smart. Let's do that. I kind of like playing the dumb character. My last couple characters have been kind of dumb, and it was kind of fun to play that way. Not so wise as well. You can't really. It's kind of hard to be dumb and wise. And then charisma, very charismatic. He's a super fun guy to get to know. So that's cool. Goes through, and I'm able to put in my own stats. And then this next section, I can go ahead and do a quick run. Looks like it's going to give me some details on my race and class, as well as where I was, my city of origin, where I was born, and describe that town. A little bit about my family background, as well as my early life in the town. So that'll be kind of cool. How I got my nickname, I'm really interested in that. That's going to kind of define a little bit more about my character, and then my future desires. So what I actually want to do in this session. So let's go ahead and run that. That sounds kind of cool, and then it'll give me a concatenated output. And once that's done, I'll go down and take a look at the concatenated output. And just scrolling through this, it looks like there is a lot of information that's generated. So let's see how it gets all put together. So it's really cool that it took all of this just from me inputting the name, nickname, and my race, class, and stats. So that's really interesting. So let's read through this backstory. Lyle is known as the Mile for his incredible endurance. One day when Lyle was out for a run, he ran into a group of boys who were picking on a smaller boy. Without thinking twice, Lyle leapt to the smaller boy's defense and fought off the attackers. The smaller boy was so impressed by Lyle's courage that he ran away, telling everyone he met the heroic halfling monk. From that day forward, Lyle was known as the Mile for his never-ending determination and his ability to go the extra mile. Oh, that's really cool how it took that the nickname and turned it into a whole story. So as a halfling, Lyle is a small, nimble creature, standing about 3 feet tall. He has reddish-brown complexion with bright blue eyes and a mop of curly red hair. Lyle typically dresses in brightly colored clothes and is rarely seen without a wild smile on his face. It's cool that it gives a lot of detail on what he looks like. That's going to be really good for generating or looking up an image and describing my character to some of the other people in the game. So as a monk, Lyle is able to twist and contort his body in ways that other people cannot. He's able to leap incredibly high and strike with great speed and accuracy. His reflexes and coordination are honed to a razor's edge, allowing him to easily avoid incoming attacks. Lyle is also able to harness his ki in order to perform powerful techniques, such as healing himself and others or enhancing his own physical prowess. It's really cool. A lot of detail on what a monk is, so that's good. I had to look up the description of monk, and that tracks with that. That's really interesting. So Lyle Thorngage was born and raised in Cumberland, a small town located in the middle of nowhere. As a halfling, Lyle was always the runt of the litter and was constantly picked on by other kids. One day when Lyle was being mercilessly teased by a group of boys, he was rescued by a kindly monk who took him under his wing. From that day forward, Lyle devoted his life to mastering martial arts and becoming the best monk he could be. It's also kind of interesting that matches up with how he helped another little boy, so that's really cool. The town of Cumberland is a small, quaint town located in the middle of a dense forest. The town is surrounded by a high wooden fence, and the only way in or out is through a large gate at the front. The town itself is made up of mostly wooden buildings, with the occasional stone structure mixed in. The streets are dirt and cobblestone and are often empty. The town is home to a few hundred people and is known for being peaceful and quiet. So the Thorngage House is a halfling family from Cumberland. They are respected and well known in the city and have been for many generations. They are known for their compassion and generosity and have always been willing to help those in need. That is exactly how Lyle seems to be. They always have been active in the city's politics and the community and have always been one of the city's most vocal supporters. Lyle Thorngage from Cumberland is yearning for adventure and puts his skills as a halfling monk to the test. He wants to find a party of adventurers to join his forces and explore a dangerous dungeon or defeat a powerful foe. Lyle is confident in his abilities and is ready to face any challenge that comes his way. So that's really cool that it was able to put all of that into a pretty cohesive backstory. So I feel like as somebody who's played some D&D games before, this is really going to help me take my character that I literally just thought of the name and my race and class, and now I have a full backstory to build upon and describe my character in my game. So that's really awesome. Next up, I'll be going through the GPT application as if I am the user of an experienced D&D player. So as an experienced D&D player, the user is likely going to input everything manually, and he would not need any of the guided options that are much more likely, because they're much more likely to know what each of the options are. So let's go ahead and start here. Same initialization as before, so I'm not going to go through that. And let's go ahead and enter a name. So as an experienced D&D player, I've made up a lot of different characters, so now I'm a little more creative with my names. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to make Bajork, and his last name is Bedorgahorn. Maybe I've been thinking of this character for a while. I thought of it while playing video games, and now I want to make it into a character. So I know what I want to input as an experienced D&D player. And the nickname of my character, I don't know, Bajorts, kind of stick with the B theme. So Bajork, Bajorts, Bedorgahorn. Choosing a race. So I know at this point I've been playing D&D for a while, so I know what all of these different race options are. And Bajork, Bedorgahorn to me sounds much like a dwarf. So let's go ahead and choose a dwarf. No, I don't really need to learn more about a dwarf. I'm just going to go ahead and select that race. I know that they're short, stocky, and typically lived in mines, stuff like that. So I've played a dwarf before. Now choosing a class, Bedorgahorn to me sounds a lot like a barbarian, so kind of a fighter that goes into fits of rage, stuff like that. So I don't necessarily need to learn more about it. I've definitely heard of, at least, and probably played a barbarian before. But you know what? I'm interested. Let's see what this has to say about it. Oh, it gives a lot of detail. I don't really need to read through that, but it is good to know that if I need to, I could come through and read about how a barbarian is a fierce warrior. I've played them before, but yes, I would like to be a barbarian. So selected class barbarian, cool. Let's go ahead and get character stats. So I'm very familiar with the different stats. I have a really good idea of what I want to do for this character. So let's go ahead and manually input my stats. So yes, I would like to manually put them in. And range from 3 to 10. So as an experienced player, I know that that's, or if I were rolling my stats, that would be the low and high there. So That's kind of cool that it does that. As a barbarian, I'm going to be extremely strong and relatively dexterous with a high constitution, but low intelligence, low wisdom, and low charisma. He is not fun to be around, but that'll be an interesting way to play a character. So that's kind of why I've been wanting to do this guy. And let's go ahead and run the quick run. So this gives me race details, class details, where I grew up, some more details on the town, the family, or my family, my early life in the town, how I got the nickname Bajorts. So that'll be interesting to see what it says about that, and my future desires. And then it's going to give me a concatenated output. So that's really all I'm interested in. As an experienced player, I've made a lot of these before, so I've I've had to describe my racing class before and where I'm from. So I am interested to see how this does it, and see how much detail there is, because I'm normally able to create a lot of detail since I have a lot of experience from the previous characters. So it looks like it does have a lot of information here. So that's already a good sign. Gonna have a lot of information to pull from for using my character. So let's take a look at the concatenated output. So full title, Bajork Bajorts Bedorgahorn, a dwarf barbarian, has the stats that I put in, as I expect. Bajork was given the nickname Bajorts after he killed a giant with his bare hands. That's interesting. Not as much detail there as I'd like. I would probably, since I've written backstories before, I would probably put a little bit more of like the giant was named Bajon and he, I don't know, something like that. So I would add some more detail there as an experienced user. As a dwarf, Bajork is short and stout and is extremely hairy in the face. He has a long white beard and likes to keep it well groomed. He often has it in braids into a number of different intricate patterns. He has bright blue eyes and is missing his left eye, which is covered by a black patch. He tends to dress in bright colors and is especially fond of green. That's really cool. I like how it went through and described even the fact that he had a missing eye, and the type of colors that he likes to dress in. So that's a lot of detail that maybe I typically wouldn't do until like a couple sessions into the game. So that's really cool that it was able to provide that. So as a barbarian, Bajork is a fierce warrior with immense strength and stamina. He's able to deal huge amounts of damage with his weapon of choice, and he can take a lot of punishment himself. He's also proficient in using his fists and feet in combat, making him a dangerous opponent. That sounds cool. Bajork grew up in the town of Morthal, where he was raised by his parents. He was always a small child, and he was very strong for his size. Bajork's parents were both dwarves, and they had been born and raised in Morthal. Bajork's mother was a warrior, and his father was a smith. Bajork's parents taught him how to fight and how to forge weapons. Bajork also was taught how to read and write, and he learned to speak Common and Dwarvish. Bajork's parents were killed when he was young, and he was raised by his uncle. Bajork's uncle was a warrior and taught Bajork how to fight and how to use weapons. Bajork grew up to be a very strong and powerful warrior. That's kind of cool that it gives a little bit of the story of how my parents passed away, and then it brings in a separate relative that I lived with. So that's really a lot of detail there that can definitely build into a really good backstory. Morthal is a small town that sits on the edge of a swamp. The buildings are made of wood and stone, and the streets are muddy and full of puddles. There's a smithy, a general store, a tavern, and a few other buildings. People of Morthal are friendly, but they keep to themselves. That's nice that it describes like the streets are muddy, so that's a lot of detail that typically a dungeon master would be the only one that's like thinking of those details. So that's cool that can be built into a backstory. The history of the Bedorgahorn family is relatively unknown, as they have no recorded history prior to moving to Morthal. What is known is that they're a family of dwarves who moved to Morthal at some point in the past and have since become prominent citizens of the city. They own a large estate in the outskirts of Morthal and are known for their wealth and influence. But Bedorgahorns have always been supportive of the city of Morthal and have contributed greatly to the development over the years. They've also been very involved in the city's politics and served in the city council for many years. Bedorgahorns are one of the most prominent and respected families in Morthal and are well known for their loyalty to the city and its people. So that's kind of cool. It provides my influence in the city. Maybe not as much detail and a little bit repetitive. I probably would have changed that up a little bit, but that's really cool that it was able to get generated. And Bajork Bedorgahorn is a dwarf barbarian from Morthal who is yearning for adventure. He wants to find a quest that will take him to different places and test his skills. He's looking for a dangerous and exciting adventure that will give him a chance to prove himself. So that's definitely a good initial story for why you might be adventuring out in a party. So overall, I think this is a really good backstory that was generated. It flows really well and provides a lot of detail that I can use as an experienced player. And I can just use this to build off it. I might not use only this, but I could definitely use this as a lot of good inspiration for continuing to build my character. Next up, as an example user, we have a player who wants to create a very specific character. So as a player wanting to create a very specific character, user would be very picky in all the options they choose. They likely already have their character idea planned out, and they're just using this as a tool to get some inspiration for their backstory. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling out all the details for this very specific character. So I'm going to go ahead and, as this type of player, I know exactly what I want to name him. Don't have to think about it at all. It's Grayson, and his last name is McJurgensen. Let's say his nickname is Junior. So he's a junior, goes by Junior. Didn't really like Grayson all that much. For sure, he is a half-elf. So let's choose that. I don't need to know anything about, don't need to learn more about half-elf. I know exactly that is the character I want to be. Choose a class. I definitely want to be a wizard. So I know, definitely want to be a wizard. Don't need to know anything about it. Don't need to know anything about other classes. I want to be a wizard. The character stats, definitely have these all planned out, so I would love to manually set these. So yes, I will manually set these. Strength, he's a wizard, so not very strong, not very dexterous, so let's keep those pretty low, but not too low. Constitution, he's a little bit better, and he's definitely intelligent. As a wizard, you kind of have to be. Kind of wise, but definitely intelligence is his top. And then a little bit charismatic. He's got to be able to get around and be able to speak to people. He likes adventure. So I know exactly those are the stats that I wanted. So cool. Let's go ahead and do a quick run. So this is where, as detailed as I was on all the input, I definitely want a lot of inspiration. So definitely want to know a lot about my backstory and like where I was from. So my city of origin, and the town I'm from, and my family. Not so much care about the nickname. Junior is kind of standard, and then I would like to see what it has to say for my future as a D&D, or in my next D&D game. So I really care about the concatenated output, so let's go ahead and run this. I'm not too picky right now for like the extent of the output. I don't necessarily need a lot of information. I more want this for inspiration for my character. I definitely know a lot about like how I want to play him as someone who is very picky about their character. All right, so the concatenated output for Grayson Jr. McJurgensen, a half-elf wizard. Low strength, but high intelligence. So Grayson is known as Junior because he's the youngest wizard in the town of wizards. He was only 16 and he joined the other wizards who are all older than him. He earned their respect by defeating a powerful wizard in a duel. Oh, that's interesting. So I'm a kind of a prodigy. I can definitely build off of that. As a half-elf, Grayson McJurgensen is a tall, thin, and with long silver hair. She has pointed ears, her eyes are deep green, and she usually wears simple clothes, earth tones, and she carries a bow and quiver with arrows on her back. So that one is a little interesting. I was more going for Grayson as a male character, but I can definitely see that it could be a female. But I definitely was more looking for a male character. But I can still use the description as a general description for my character. As Grayson, a wizard, you have the ability to use your mental prowess and control the elements and cast spells. You're able to tap into magical energy that surrounds us all and use it to your advantage. Wizards are usually slender and have sharp features. They are able to use quick wit and sharp intellect to outsmart their opponents and cast spells that are both powerful and complex. All right, so definitely using spells, powerful spells. Grayson McJurgensen was born in the town of Hilltop to a human mother and an elf father. His mother died when he was young, and his father vanished soon after. Grayson was raised by his maternal grandparents. He was old enough, he began to study magic. He quickly discovered that he was natural aptitude for it. He also began to explore the elven heritage and learned that he could see and communicate with spirits, an ability that led him to become a wizard. Grayson always felt like he was an outsider in Hilltop and has rarely stayed in one place for too long. He has traveled extensively, both in the human world and the Feywild. He has recently returned to Hilltop and has taken up residence in an abandoned tower in the outskirts of town. The town of Hilltop is located atop a large hill in the middle of a dense forest. The town is encircled in a high stone wall and only entrance through a large iron gate. Buildings in the town are made of wood and stone, streets of dirt, and there's a market square in the center of town. Houses are clustered around it, a small church and tavern in the square. Tavern is the only source of alcohol in the town. The church is the only source of medical care. That's kind of cool. It gives a lot of details, kind of tells me about the town that I grew up in, and how a small town vibe it is that the church is the medical care. McJurgensen has a family resident, or has the McJurgensen family has resided in Hilltop for generations. Always been prominent family in the city. They're known for their half-elf heritage. They've always been very active in the city's government and have been known for their charitable work and have always been generous to the city's residents. Grayson McJurgensen, half-elf wizard from Hilltop, is yearning for adventure and will take him to new exotic places where he can explore ancient ruins, lost civilizations. He was also hoping to find a rare, powerful magic artifacts and can learn from long-forgotten spells. That's really cool. Gives me a good idea of what I want to be doing as my character. And overall, I think that's a really cool backstory that gives me a lot of detail for the very specific character of Grayson Jr. McJurgensen that I wanted to build. And lastly, for an example user, we have a dungeon master creating a backstory for an NPC or a non-playable character. As a dungeon master making an NPC, user would likely know generally the type of character they want to make, but is more interested in the description that's output, and they are able, or so that they are able to describe it to the NPC to their players. So really not super interested in all the details of the stats and all that, but more just like who they are, what they look like, and then wanting to get all those juicy backstory details. So let's go ahead and input everything for this user. So the name of my character, so I am a DM, so I've made up this NPC. Typically I have come up with this name before, pulled it from a list of names. Let's go Oigebron, and his surname is Rayson. And you'll see why I want to do Oigebron Rayson, because typically as an NPC, I want to make him interesting to the other characters. So his nickname is going to be Raisin Bran. Kind of gonna play on his name, so Rayson Bran, Oigebron. So kind of make it fun for the players as a DM making an NPC. You definitely want to keep them interested. So choosing a race, Oigebron kind of sounds like a half-orc name. Not too interested in learning about the half-orc race. As a DM, I already know pretty much everything about D&D, or typically know a lot about D&D, so I don't need to know about that. So selected race half-orc. Choosing a class, Oigebron, let's say he's a cleric, so he's a spellcaster, but on the more like religious side of things. So I don't necessarily need to know about that. Like I said, I'm a dungeon master, so I pretty much know most of what this is. And then character stats, again, not super interested in putting together a specific stat for each of these different stats. So no, I would not like to manually set my stats. So this looks good to me. High intelligence as a cleric, that sounds good. And then let's go ahead and do a quick run. So this is where I'm actually interested as a DM making an NPC. I want to know a lot about their city of origin, their family details, their early life, how they got their nickname. That's probably the most fun thing to be able as a DM to express to your characters, and then their future desires. So I'm more interested in this concatenated output here. So let's go ahead and run that. And here I'm looking for a decent amount of output, and it looks like I'm getting it. So I definitely impressed by that. I want a lot to pull from so that I can react differently to how my characters portray my character or my NPC, and I can change it up a little bit if I need to. So concatenated output for Orgibron, the Raisin Brand Raisin, half-orc cleric. These are his generated stats. Like I said, not too interested in that. This is where I actually care about. So one day Orgibron was preaching in the city. A drunken nobleman staggered into the church and began heckling him. Orgibron continued preaching. The nobleman could not be silenced. Finally, Orgibron lost his temper and shouted to the man to be quiet. The man turned red with anger and called Orgibron a Raisin Brand. The nickname stuck, and Orgibron has been known as Raisin Brand ever since. That's definitely something that the players might ask about this NPC. So that's kind of cool that it gives a whole backstory on he was preaching in a church and all that. So as a half-orc, Orgibron is greenish gray skin, slanted eyes, and tusks. Small and muscular, with a barrel chest and long, powerful arms. His hands are large and calloused, and his fingers end in sharp nails. He has a wild mane and black hair, which often wears in a top knot. He dresses in simple clothes, often in earth tones, and carries a large axe on his back. So that's really important. As a DM, definitely want to be able to describe your character in enough detail that your players know what your character looks like. So that's really cool that it gives all that detail for that. As a cleric, Orgibron is able to see in the dark. He's proficient in the use of simple weapons and light armor. He has the ability to cast spells and use divine power to heal the sick and injured. So I think that last part's the most important there. Orgibron Raisin was born to a human mother and an orc father in the town of Chantry's Rest. That's a cool name for a place to come from. His father was a warrior who had been captured by humans during a raid, and his mother was a servant in the household of the local lord. When Orgibron was 5, his father was killed in a fight with another orc. His mother died of wasting disease. He was raised by the lord of the town, who took pity on the orphan boy. He was given a room in the lord's mansion and was treated as one of the lord's own children. He was educated by the lord's tutors, learned to read and write. When he was 16, he was ordained a priest in the local church. He served in the church for 4 years before being called to serve in a larger city. Chantry's Rest is a small town located in the middle of Kingdom of Cormyr. It's surrounded by farmland, is known for architecture and stonework. The town is home to a small number of shops and businesses, as well as an inn and a temple. So that's really cool. That's a lot of detail on the city that he's from, and maybe that's the city that the player characters meet this NPC. So that's really good to have all that detail. Gives a lot of inspiration to the dungeon master as they're creating the world. His half-orc, his family, and its origins in the city of Chantry's Rest, where they all lived for generations. They're a proud and honorable family and have always been loyal to the city and its people. They're known for their strength and resilience and have always been willing to fight for the city in times of need. They're also known for their great love of music, and their house is always filled with sounds of laughter and song. It's interesting. Orgibron is looking for adventure that will test his skills as a cleric. He wants to find a group of like-minded individuals who are willing to go on a dangerous quest. The quest should involve combat, puzzle solving, and exploration. Orgibron is hoping to find some magical treasures along the way. So that's a really good plot hook to introduce the player characters to this NPC. Overall, I definitely think that this is a lot of really good detailed information that I can use to explain this NPC to the players. So as a DM, I'm pretty happy with this output, and I have a lot of detail to pull from. So that's awesome. So that was our GPT-3 backstory generator for all the different example users.